The technological fantasy world of the 1960s runs rampant in this episode. With all the things Disney promised us in this movie, sadly, none involve an actual computer wearing any kind of casual footwear. The closest we get is our hero in sopping wet loafers. Come and explore the world of Medfield College with us as we watch The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Buena Vista Boys. This one is a doozy, let me tell you. This is one that I've seen on the list here for several months since we've been planning the show, Matt. And I was equal parts nervous and excited because the name is so bizarre that you really have no indication. I mean, at least with like our last one, right? Like Moon Pilot. Okay, a pilot goes to the moon. Got it. You know, hot lead, cold feet. Okay, you can sort of like get it. Okay, it's a Western, I guess. Hot lead is a very Western thing. But the computer wore tennis shoes. I don't understand.
Yeah, and it does not give you any indication of where this movie is going to go at all.
Right. Well, also, just thinking about it now, the name is in the past tense, but we follow along the movie in the present tense.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So already, right off the bat, I'm out.
The entire story, what you don't understand, is like a fable from like long. We're hearing it from like long in the future. You know?
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. Yes, we are covering the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes on this episode. And as usual, I have a bunch of clips and we have some pretty cool information to get to, you know, from the actors. It was a lot of, it was interesting. We were chatting before the show. Like there are a lot of actors, I think in this, when was it, 68, 69, this movie came out?
69, yeah.
These people, if you were alive back then, I think you would recognize most of the cameos that are in this from either, you know, being in The Virginian or Gunsmoke or Bonanza or any of like the kind of serials that were going on back then. I think you would recognize many, many people. But now you're like, why is this weird guy hitting his mouth? I don't understand. I don't understand, which we'll get to later. But that's one of the interesting parts about going back through these movies is like sort of getting a return to what were really popular actors at the time. But for us, we're like, who is this person? I got to look them up now.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have a lot of screen time, and I'm really wondering why they were allowed all of that time.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's get right into it, Matt. What do you think? Are you ready for this?
Yeah, no, please. Yeah, I need to get this out of my body.
Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. So as the movie opened, the theme song plays because that's just the standard thing, right? And I can't tell if it sucks or not. It's definitely a very busy theme song. The opening graphics are awesome. And as I watch it again, we'll play some for you in a second here. But as I'm watching it, I realized for like the third time, as I'm taking the clip, actually, I noticed that the background design are these little rectangles all throughout. They're dotted throughout. But they are punch cards. They're supposed to be a replica of a punch card for computers because computers ran on punch cards back then. And it didn't click with me. I was like, this is like a weird aesthetic.
Yeah, no, and it's, you know, and they've got it's got a little bit of numbering in there too. And
yes. So and the theme song plays, and then as it fades out, maybe you're a graphic artist. Maybe you can describe what happened.
I'm glad you brought this up because I actually had paused on this to sort of like watch the transition.
Yeah.
And, you know, in slow-mo, like kind of frame by frame, just to see like, okay, what did they actually do here? And I'll explain what happened.
Yeah, please do.
The computer wore tennis shoes and a twinkle in his eye. Never met a groovier dude, an electric kind of guy. A socket shocked and soundly socked him to a real cerebral high. Blowing his mind into the kind that leaves old Einstein wigging out behind. The computer wore tennis shoes and a smile upon his face. Turning on every chick in town at a cosmographic pace. A guy that prays and amazes and otherwise stays the whole darn human race. Making the news, paying his dues. That turned on, uptight, flat out of sight, totally together, computer and tennis shoes.
Totally together. Love it. Yeah, so you got the numbers here, and then it's like a graphic flash. What happens here?
Well, the numbers, so the number part, I think, was sort of just supposed to be kind of like for fun or almost like a fake ASCII code, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're like doing this kind of paint by numbers with the code there. And then when you look at it, when you stop it and pause it, what they actually did is they just did an inversion. They just did a color inversion. And they literally took the picture and they color inverted it, and then they flashed it like 2 or 3 times, I think, and then it did the establishing shot. Because, like, look at, there's the tree here and everything.
Yeah, well, and that's got to be by hand.
Yeah, I
right?
think they did like a paint, like they either inverted it, like using like a negative, and then went in and painted it.
Yeah,
or they just hand painted it these colors.
And what's fascinating is the coloring, right? It's like kind of a brighter green. It's a yellow, and there's an intense pink. So it's very 80s sort of Florida, Miami tropical, Golden Girls kind of thing. Yeah. And like flashes in and out, and then it goes into the regular scene.
And it has nothing to do with like computer. Like you can tell, look at the numbers. The numbers don't build around the shape. It's not like the inside green is all 6s and then the outside is like 1s and 4s. It's nothing.
It's nothing.
It is nothing.
You know what? Maybe I will try to use this for the thumbnail.
I'd love
for
it.
The show. It is. And again, I love going back through these movies because you get things like this artwork is really good. It's cool. And it's really, really effective. And to a certain extent, it sort of oversells what's about to happen.
Yeah,
it oversells the movie, and because technically, I imagine that's really hard, or someone had to think of that. And I get really impressed when people think about very creative niche things, and I'm going, whoever thought of this is super rad, and they did a great job thinking about this. And it's a shame that it's attached to something that never really goes as together with a cool image. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Well, the whole opening really has a lot of great aesthetic, cool colors. It's high energy, for all the things that the song has in it. We call it groovy kind of dude or whatever they're trying to say.
Guy.
Oh, so cerebral high. Oh my God, calm down. It's
He's
just
paying his dues. What's he doing?
Yeah.
What's he paying his dues? What are you talking about?
Man, the whole opening reminds me of like when Hollywood or entertainment gets a hold of the things teenagers were saying 3 years ago. Like how, right? That's what it feels like. It feels like this song is so late to the game because it's just stacking up all those things, like how people now do those TikToks about like, I'm going to talk like a teenager with brain rot or whatever. And they're like, ooh, lit, hit the gritty, And that's what this feels like.
Yeah, my marketing team convinced me to let the Gen Z write the commercial.
Absolutely.
That's the worst,
I remember watching that. Oh,
as soon as you see those, you're like, ugh, gross.
No, and that's what this song feels like. But it is high energy, and it does groove. It's groovy, baby.
And that is marketing back then too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of movies and TV shows and trying to find that niche.
Yeah.
And they're directly selling to you. They had the biggest actors of the day around that time sitting down smoking, going, I'm an actor. I think you should smoke. Like, you would never see that anymore. You know what I mean? Now it's all like subtext or whatever.
Yeah. No, and so I think as far as representing like the idea of a computer, I think this opening is pretty good. It shows the beep boops and the beeps, and anybody who's like a computer layman, which like everybody in the world would have been back then for the most part. Yeah. It sells a style, and you're like, okay, we're going to do some computer stuff. And you're right. I think it's attached to a movie where there's a computer in it for like 10 minutes. And then the rest of it is just sort of wavering nonsense. It's like Dexter Riley became really like a Jeopardy contestant. Like that's kind of how smart he is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we fade out of the graphics, fade into an establishing shot of what we'll later find out is the campus of Medfield University. And I'm reminded how fast we jump into the plot in these movies. The theme music is fading away. We're going ba-da, ba-da, and we're already getting a big spoonful of plot delivered to us. We enter a meeting in a room with a bunch of really old dudes in suits in the middle of arguing that the school cannot afford to get a computer. So this must be a school board kind of a thing. We don't really know. I mean, I guess later on we assume, but it's a school board meeting or something like that. We zoom into a tall microphone hidden in a flower arrangement on the table, which leads, it's kind of cute. A lot of this is shot like a TV show, which I think a lot of these movies are because they can be cut up, right? And so it is very cute where it's they zoom in on the microphone, the camera pans down to run down to the wire to the bulky transmitter. Then the next shot, it cuts immediately to the top of a transmitter antenna outside, and then it runs down to, then you see the group of students that's going to be in the film listening to what the meeting is. It was very clever. I really liked it. It was a nice little transition.
No, I think you're right, because it's like it links one directly to the other.
In a cute way, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
So the group of students are walking around. They're listening to this board conversation, and they are heavily invested into the conversation. And we get our first glimpse already of Kirk Russell, who is kind of taller than I realized. I mean, man's large. He's a tall dude. I just never really get that like feeling from him, right?
Yeah.
We hear that the computer would cost $10,000, but the school's budget is so low that the banks aren't even returning the dean's phone call to get loans. That is bad. I mean, your school is down bad if you can't get any money from a bank, man. So, no, unfortunately, the kids at the college are not going to get a new computer. And everyone sort of goes, oh, man, whatever. In today's money, I looked it up, the computer would be about $85,000.
Oof. Well, that's nothing.
Yeah, no, it's nothing, man. With the computer business off the table in the meeting, the agenda moves on to other issues, namely the group of kids who aren't as, quote, academically gifted as the rest of the student body is. A heavily lacquered man leans in and says that this is a competitive educational institution. I mean, he looks like he has lacquer applied all over his face. He is very shiny.
Yeah.
Very shiny man. We get some talk about putting students on probation, and our hero, Dexter Riley, who's, of course, played by Kirk Russell, is on that very list. And it sets us up for, academic probation. It's not double secret probation, but it's still, there's some conflict going on.
Yeah.
So we're back with the group of kids again, and they're still bummed out about not getting a computer on campus. The group of kids gets the idea to approach the seller of the computer in question and see if he'll donate it to the college. The seller just so happens to be a rich investment guy, A.J. Arno, and Dexter used to work for him as a janitor, of course, so he'll have no problem getting in to see him. And I love this, where it's like the guy who's selling it is A.J. Arno, and then Pete, the guy goes, hey, isn't that big guy who runs A.J. Arno Investment? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, dude, I was hoping you'd bring that up because that is the dumbest line. Are you talking about McDonald, the one who owns the McDonald's hamburger restaurant?
Yeah. I would have loved it. It was like, A.J. Arno, isn't he the guy that runs, Ben Sherman Clothers? So we smash cut from there into the offices of A.J. Arno, played by Cesar Romero. Now, in that last scene, I assumed it would just be Dexter going in to pitch the donation from Arno, because if you're going to go ask for favors from a big wig investor guy that's really big in town, plus your former boss, even though it's you're way down the ladder, you probably want to go at it solo. But no, every single kid in that last scene is there. And I counted about 18, and it was like a real fast head count.
Yeah.
And what's wild to me is they all had coffee cups in their hand, each single one of them. So A.J. Arno, they planned for anything.
Yeah.
I just couldn't imagine just 20 kids. You guys want some coffee or something? Yeah. Cindy, get 20 cups of coffee, please, for these kids. Don't wait 20 minutes.
When you were talking earlier about how we jumped right into the plot, this is one of those scenes where it went from Pete going, hey, how are we going to get in there? And he's like, well, I used to be a janitor. I'm sure he'll talk to me. And there's no struggle or it's just, yep, we're in the office.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
Arno goes like, oh, I never forget an employee. And it's like, but why not?
Yeah.
He's the
And it's-
janitor.
and he's like riding, and they're not only are they're done with the pitch.
Yeah.
He's already like touching his mustache going, well, guys, I'd love to donate the computer, but and so that's how fast we're going through this plot. It's like we've gone over the dialogue. We're at the end of it now.
I'm telling you, some scenes in this movie are 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It's very strange. As you mentioned, Arno says that since he already donates $20,000 to the school a year, he just can't give the computer away on top of that donation. But maybe he can figure out a way to make it happen. And I wonder why he can't.
Yeah.
He already bought the computer. If he's selling it, you're an investment, whatever, it's fine.
No, you make a good point though.
Right? It kind of is weird. And there's a list of things I want to talk about after we talk about this movie, about things that don't really add up for me.
Yeah, and I read that. I read your list, and everything on there, bing, bing, bing for me, one at a time. Absolutely. Well, and by your calculations, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
His donation would have been like $170,000, right?
Yeah, something like that.
At $20,000. Think about that. Like he already gives the equivalent of $170,000 to the college in donation.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Right,
that is so much money.
He ushers the kids out, and then in what can only be described as a nod to Cesar Romero's role on the Batman TV series, because of course, well, maybe you don't know. I mean, I know you know, Matt, but people who may not know, Cesar Romero used to play the Joker on the Batman TV series with Adam West. So any clip you see of Batman, fat Batman running around, the Joker in that universe was Cesar Romero.
Listen, I resemble that Batman, sir.
Yeah, well, look, man.
Yeah, no, when he went to his desk and clicked the thing and his wall opened up.
Yeah.
I physically got up. I was like,
yeah,
what's happening right now? This movie just got good. What is going on?
AJ Arno flips a switch and a secret door opens up in the wall, exposing an elevator. And what I love about this part is they play a little orchestral stinger, kind of reminiscent of what you would have played in the Batman thing, where it's like, just like a couple of notes, and it carries through some ominous thing. So he climbs in this elevator, takes it down to the basement, where the first thing we see are old Italian-looking dudes counting money.
Yep.
And it is everything you'd expect to find in the secret basement lair of an investment banker, who also used to be the Joker. We follow Arno over to a giant computer bank, which is, of course, exactly what you think it would look like in the 60s. Lots of gray, tall cabinets, blinking lights, and spinning reels of tape. It's very classic 60s computer stuff.
Yeah, there's no beginning or end to this monstrosity. It's just pieces everywhere.
Yeah. Someone flips a few switches, and we start getting data on the screen and a classic computer-sounding voice starting with the word Applejack. Then a bunch of other words and numbers, though right now we aren't too sure what it all means. Arno makes mention of not sending that $20,000 donation to the college and says he has it all worked out. We cut to a classroom and find Professor Quigley, who was one of the men from the first scene, and he was arguing in favor of spending school funds on the computer. Professor Quigley is directing the students where to put all the computer banks we just saw in the last scene at Arno's place. The students did it! And Arno came through with the donation. Huzzah and hooray. All these cabinets are numbered. And when we get there, Quigley's like, oh, number 146, that goes over there. And it reminds you how massive computers used to be back then. And these were computers that I'm assuming were scaled down for a movie set.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Well, because he makes mention later something about how that computer 20 years ago was running programs about how a mission to Saturn would go.
Right.
And I love the tags on everything. That really brings it home. When somebody would be moving large electronic equipment, what you'd have to do there. The scene reminded me of the scene where they build the interocitor in This Island Earth. If you ever watch that, where he's got all the pieces laid out on the floor, and he's got the giant list. He's counting it all with his pencil.
Dean Higgins comes in, who was the man who was rejecting the purchase of the computer. He comes in and starts complaining. He has a bone to pick with the kid. So let's hear a little bit of whatever Dean Higgins has to say.
Ray of sunshine.
Understand that since we have made such a valuable donation, we must withhold our yearly cash contribution. Yours in the interest of higher education, A.J. Arno. Well, this is a dreadful mistake,
You
sir.
can say that again. And I'm going to tell you this much, Quigley. In the future, I'm going to be watching them.
But you can't blame the boys, sir. Why, it's Mr. Arno who's acted in bad faith.
Oh, good faith, bad faith, who cares? They've cost this school $20,000.
Well, not altogether, Dean. We still have the computer.
Oh, shut up. Higher education.
Hey, pretty great about the computer, huh? You know, I don't like to brag, but if it hadn't been for the fact that I used to work there.
Him, I'm going to watch most of all.
What's he going to be watching me for?
How many times did Whiskey Joe Flynn have to do that? That guy, that sounded like a day drinking take.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be watching them.
So Arno has sent a letter to the school saying he, because we donated the computer, we're not going to be making the $20,000 pledge. And the dean's very pissed off about this, which, rightly so, I guess.
Absolutely.
So I think the next scene is a few weeks later. And as the professor is giving a class on how the computer works, because it's all set up already, and he notes that for the past couple of weeks, he's been working on an experiment with a clever little demonstration where he makes the computer open and close windows based on a rain gauge, which all of this stuff that he's showcasing now could probably be done with a Raspberry Pi today, for $100.
You could set it all up into a Samsung hub or something,
Right. Instead of half a room full of crap. It's like, man, it's wild.
Yeah.
But here we get a nice little setup into the plot.
My question when I was watching this was any of this even really possible? Or was this all computer fantasy?
Now, another very important feature is its infallible memory. Before this computer was owned by the A.J. Arno Company, it used to be employed by the Space Research Center at the Pacific Institute of Technology. And they were kind enough to send us this magnetic tape, which will call forth from the computer solutions to a series of problems that would occur on a simulated flight to the planet Saturn. Now, mind you, it was 20 years ago that this program was operational. 20 years. Well, if you'll watch the center panel, please.
And spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. Things break, and there's a big spark. We find out a little bit later in the scene, a fried logic activator board prevents the computer from doing stuff. Things go haywire, and it splits out. And Dexter goes up and goes, "Hey, what happened, Professor?" And he's like, "Oh, a logic activator board must have fried."
Yeah, same thing that took down R5D4.
That's right. And Dexter offers to make the 70-mile one-way drive to get a replacement.
Oof.
But if he did that, the professor says he wouldn't be able to study for the collegiate exam or whatever it is, which is tomorrow. Of course, Dexter says he has it all figured out and goes on the drive anyway. And yeah, I have in my notes here, to your point, Matt, when the teacher says 20 years ago, that would be 1949.
Yeah.
At that point, did we have plans to fly to Saturn in 1949?
Did we know Saturn existed in 1949?
I know, right? Yeah. We cut to Dexter in his car at night, which, by the way, I don't think I put a note in here, but I meant to. It's not really a car so much as a dune buggy with a tarp. It's the weirdest thing, man.
Yeah, it's a ragtop dune buggy.
Yeah.
It's cool, though. It's got those 70s flowers all over it, like that late 60s flower power.
Yeah. We cut to Dexter in his car at night during a big, big rainstorm. He has papers and notes taped up all around his car, on the steering wheel, next to him on the windows. And as he fills out a practice exam while driving in the rain, he pulls up to the school with the spare computer part in hand. It turns out the rain has leaked into the computer lab, and there are puddles everywhere. And I'm not talking just like a little tiny leak. This man's feet are sopping. He has 2 soakers, and he is just splashing all over the place in the computer lab.
Right? No, and I love that because it's a visual representation of what a crap hole Medfield College has become.
Yeah, but somehow it attracts geniuses all over the place. No wonder the board was denying the school a $10,000 computer. The thing is about to float away. Dexter enters the computer lab with the part, and you'd think that since Dexter is in a computer class, learning about the dang things, and had to ask the professor what happened when the computer fried earlier in that day, you'd think he would just drop the part off and go home, because clearly he's just learning. He's still figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
But no, This kid starts ripping the back off a $10,000 computer system and trying to replace the missing part himself, which is crazy to me because it took me 15 years to be comfortable inserting a stick of memory into my motherboard without worrying about static discharge frying it. But
Same.
we're just of different minds, I guess. So while Dexter's doing this, we see that there are signs hanging about all over the place saying, high voltage, be careful, whatever. And Dexter is literally standing in a puddle, fiddling with electronics. But since the power is out, I guess he's comfortable with this because he comes in, he flicks the lights don't come on, whatever.
You remember he's on probation, right? For being a dummy. So he's a charming idiot. That's pretty much it.
What I think happened, it's not too clear, but I think what's going on is he's walking around, his loafers are sopping wet. Like I said, he's got two soakers and he tries to plug the thing in because the big electric cords, and they're not just like normal 3-prongers. They're like 6 prongs or whatever. They're huge,
It's Back to
right?
the Future. It's the stuff that Doc's trying to put together.
Yeah. So it looks like because he has one end of the hanging power cord in one hand and he grabs the other end with his other hand, and somehow just touching both cables was enough to complete a circuit, even though the power was out.
Yes.
So whatever. At any rate, sparks fly, and Dexter does his best help I'm being fried face, and the computer magically turns on.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about that.
Yeah, it starts whirring. The magnetic tape machine spins to life. Buttons beep and bloop and blink. Something pops, and everything comes to a grinding halt. The whole room is smoking, and Dexter, who is seemingly unharmed, beats feet out of there. We cut to him in bed at home, and he starts to repeat these numbers in a computerized voice.
3 at 8-02-30. Applejack, Rainbow Lodge, 4378, Animals 750, Tables 480, Amusement 624, Applejack, Pompeii Palace, 4379.
Huh? Dexter, you okay?
Yeah. You waking up to ask me if I was okay.
No, you were beeping.
Burping?
No, beeping.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's good.
See, I'm so glad that they brought it up because I was losing my mind when I heard the beeping. Because I was like, is my man actually beeping? Where would that beep even be coming from? And then I didn't think they were going to address it. And then when Pete actually said something, I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. Like, my man was actually beeping in real life.
Yeah, it's a lot of, a lot of times in movies and TV shows and stuff, you hear music or whatever, and the other person obviously doesn't hear it. I thought it was sort of like that, where it's like we're sort of reinforcing the fact that something weird is happening in his body. But no, he's beeping. Yeah,
I thought it was just sort of some piece of sound to like help the audience understand he's a computer now.
Yeah.
But nope.
Yeah. Which is all we need. It's just sound. We don't need a reason or whatever. So as you can tell, these are the same sets of data that we heard in Arno's basement where the computer came from in the first place. Still don't know what they mean. We'll figure it out later.
Yep.
So we're back in school the next day, and Dexter tells the professor what happened, and there are tech people already working on fixing the computer. So we have what is an emerging technology in computers, okay, that not everybody has or has access to, and the professor was able to get someone there, multiple someones, to fix the problem within an hour or two of school starting. And I just wrote, hell yeah. I don't know what else to say to that. It was very convenient. Yeah, it was awesome, right? Anyway, they're taking the collegiate ranking exam test or whatever it's called in the movie. And that's what the Professor Quigley wanted Dexter Riley to be studying for instead of driving to get the computer part, which is funny because the tech people are already there anyway. So like they could have just brought the part. It didn't need to happen, but that's fine. Whatever. Who cares? So the collegiate ranking exam test is one that Medfield typically does pretty poorly in. And Dexter starts in on the test. He's ticking all these boxes faster than anyone, right? And we get these close-up shots of his eyes, complete with that really cool computer beeping sound. So we're reinforcing that he is a computer. There's some computer thing going on.
But this is implied beeping, right?
This might be implied, but yeah, because no one mentioned
My
it.
man is not sitting there beeping.
Yeah. Dexter is excited and shocked that he's remembering all these things, especially since he's got them all wrong just last night while driving. Now, this test is not just like a one sheet. It's a pretty thick packet of paper. And as the test goes on, Dexter gets faster and faster and faster. And the more pages he turns, the class notes the sound of those pages turning, and we get this really nice push in of the professor finally noticing also, like, who's turning the pages so fast? What's going on? And it was really neat. He looks up and the camera's pushing in at the same time. It's really cool. I thought it was nice. It was a clever way to get us to kind of feel that sense of wonder or discovery. And Dexter is all done with the test, and he spends the rest of the scene making as much noise as possible while also trying to be as quiet as possible. So you think, once we get that push in and we see what's happening and Dexter's done with the test, you think that's we're out of the scene. No. Nay. Dexter is leaning back in his chair. He's opening a thing. He's doing the scene goes on for another minute. It's wild.
My God, it is brutal. And it completely undermines all of those great short, quick scenes that they did before.
So out of that scene into another scene in a doctor's office where Dexter is being examined by a doctor and the dean and the professor are both there and they're chatting. And this is where we learn that since Dexter has been at the school, I think the dean or the professor, I can't remember which one, nobody has ever finished that collegiate test ever, just never even completed it.
Yeah.
But Dexter finished it. And not only that, but he finished it in 4.5 minutes. And he didn't make one mistake. The doctor invites the two men over to have a look at Dexter's eye and to see what he sees. So Quigley comes over, and as he takes the little eye looker thingy from the doctor and he leans in to look at Dexter's eye, we see what he sees. We get his POV, blinking lights and flashing buttons, just like a computer.
And I was like, what the hell does the dean know about looking in eyes? What the hell? Why are you handing him this? He's not, where are his parents?
Why are they there? I know, right? The doctor then puts some kind of like funnel. I don't know. I can't describe it. It's maybe like an old gramophone looking thing, but it's like a funnel with a wide, mouth, and it puts up to his head.
Electrochestoscope.
Yeah, and there's a monitor attached to it, right? So he takes the men around to the monitor where we get a live look, supposedly, at what is going on inside Dexter's brain, which to me is much more fascinating than half a room full of computers. Like, we have the professor here writing code to call in a pre-recorded order for pickup from the grocery store. But this doctor has a thing where you can see live thoughts already.
Yeah.
The leap here is insane.
Why the hell is this movie about this kid? Why is it not about the thought machine?
I know, right? That could be so cool.
What the hell is going on?
I don't know. It's weird. I mean, maybe that's not what it is, but that's what it seems like to me. So if you watch this movie, let me know if I'm wrong.
Well, because the doctor doesn't say anything. This doctor is saying nothing.
No lines.
He's just walking around shoving equipment in this guy's face and then just pointing at things. Hey, look over here.
At first, it's just a jumble of images that are just more computer parts and whatnot, like stuff we've already seen, basically whirring tape reels and stuff. Then we start seeing like a fading in and out of can girls, slot machines, all superimposed on one another, not very clear, But then we move to the clearest image so far. A beautiful woman in a bikini getting into a hot rod, a topless hot rod, right? With bubbles floating around. The men look at Dexter and he kind of like shrugs. He's kind of just as confused as they are as to why he's thinking about this woman.
I don't know why I'm thinking about this.
And I'll be honest, I saw this and I'm like, okay, well, this is clearly foreshadowing. So at some point we're going to get to see this very beautiful woman in a bikini.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. We don't. We get a kind of a whirling spin transition and we see Dexter's face, the face that he was just making, by the way, under the headline, "Human Computer to Appear on TV." The dean and Professor Quigley are at the TV station. This is how fast, like we've been saying, this is how fast we move from scene to scene. Like that transition scene was just the newspaper, and then we're already at the TV station. You don't get to breathe. There is no time to comprehend what's happening. We're already showing Dexter off. So there's going to be like a debate prep or something.
Isn't it like a panel? It's like a panel of smart people who are just going to ask him random questions that if he's so dang smart, he should be able to answer them.
This scene is kind of all over the place, but as best as I can describe it, Dexter is on a platform sitting in a chair with 8 microphones in front of him. The announcer welcomes the panel of old white men sitting in front of Dexter, calling them the learned men in front, who were there in the interest of science and education. You have the student little collective there watching, and that's kind of about it as far as an audience goes. It's a very small affair, and I still don't really know what is about to happen or why. That's more important to me. Like, why is this going on? Why is this going on TV? We just discovered that a man, what is he, 20, whatever?
Yeah.
His brain turned into a computer. It has lights in it. I can see his thoughts, but the next day we're going to throw him in front of a panel and we're going to televise it. We're not even going to like keep it secret or bring it in front of Congress or something like that. It's going on ABC.
And we're not even mentioning the man who has the frickin' dream catcher machine.
I know, right? Okay, so the panelists, they start asking Dexter questions, starting with mathematics. And of course, Dexter passes the questions with ease. He's starting to get his confidence with each question. One of his friends, Pete, leans in and notes maybe a bit too much confidence because Dexter begins to flex a bit at the panel, telling him that we should save the applause at the end for efficiency's sake. And also, he's well equipped to move into other fields besides math. One of his friends says under his breath that she liked him the way he was. So already we get a little internal conflict in the friend group. We get, a very good notion that Dexter's changing. He's not behaving the same way.
Yeah. Well, and you wonder how much of this does he control? Because as you'll see later, his behavior goes back and forth. Right in this first area, he becomes like very like smart and guys, we've wasted 38 seconds already. But then later, it's like he's never using his computer powers. Like there's so many times that he should have computed information to save him from peril. And he never did it. And so it's like, how does he tap into the Computron powers?
Right. I don't know. We get another newspaper headline. This one reads, Medfield Marvel tours country. Then a plane lands and his pals are back home watching this all unfold on TV. The announcer mentions Dexter's journey through Gotham. And that has to be another odd nod to Cesar Romero being in the Batman series, right? It has to be. The plane stops and everybody piles out, with Dexter coming out last, looking amazing in a double-breasted suit jacket that is paired perfectly with a ribbed mock turtleneck. Baby blue mock turtleneck, by the way, of course. News crews are standing by, giving the viewers on TV back home a glimpse of what's going on. Dexter walks over to the reporter, and two girls, which are standing behind the reporter, greet Dexter, giving him flowers, and they kiss him on the cheek. Both girls kiss him on the cheek. The Dexter wraps his arms around both girls, and then full-on smooches the first one in the face, on the lips, just plants her kiss, that's it. Then he rotates to the other girl and he like really gets in there. Like he kisses her and he's going for it. Needless to say, this pisses off the blonde girl of the group, who is Annie is her name. And I think it's his girlfriend or maybe love interest or something. That's not really defined. And here I got a little bit of that.
Queen of the Yonkers Botanical Society and her lady in waiting.
Dirty rat! I always knew if he had any brains, he'd be dangerous.
Hey, Annie, wait a second. Just a second. Look, I know Dexter's acting kind of weird, but it's kind of understandable. I mean, all of a sudden, like he's the smartest guy in the whole world, and everybody's catering to him.
Well, you're telling me.
By the way, and that's Pete talking. And in my opinion, Pete is the standout of this movie.
Yeah.
It's not Kurt Russell. It's Pete.
Dude, this should have happened to Pete.
This should have happened to Pete, bro.
I'll tell you what, because Pete would have known what to do with these powers. He would have stayed in control.
For sure,
but,
man.
like, how much do you love, and like, maybe it was a sign of the times, but I love that Pete is such a cool guy. He was like, Annie, come on, man. He's going to kiss a couple of broads, all right? Like, he's the smartest guy in the world, all right? The world's at his feet, like, but he's a good guy, all right? He's going to come out of this 18 girls later, and he'll be back to you.
Look, you got to gaslight a little bit, but in that clip, it's funny because she gets up, she's in a heap, she's leaving, she turns the TV off, she stands up, the whole dorm room, common room, I don't even know what it is. We see it a couple times here. They're all watching this on TV, and she gets up and turns it off when everybody's watching it, and then she stands up, Pete stands up, and as he's telling her to calm down. And like, look, dude, we're just, having a homie's back. He's putting on her coat for her.
Yeah, he's like,
and then she leaves, and he's like, oh, just calm down. But he's also going like, you don't stay because we're gonna turn it back on and we're gonna watch our friend Mac on.
You're gonna want to leave,
yeah,
because you're gonna be mad.
It's crazy. the next scene, he gets a ticker tape parade through Gotham, which is really just Kirk Russell in the back of a red car being shot on a soundstage with stock footage of a real parade cut around him. But, you take what you can get. It's kind of awkward looking. It's like, wow.
I was thinking
weird.
about that. I was thinking about the PAs who were like throwing the crap at the car, like for that scene.
It's pretty good, man. So we pick up Dexter just outside the UN building, where the TV reporter is explaining that Dexter has just greeted every delegate at the UN in their own native language. And soon he'll be able to master every language the world has ever known with his, quote, computer type brain. So is it a computer or is it not? I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah,
yet.
like he doesn't have hardware in his brain. It's like,
does he? I think he does, because we saw it.
I know, and that's the confusing part about this is that because later they do say that his brain is like a computer now, but yet we saw a physical computer in his brain.
I don't get it. And it's also just fun. It's not obviously they didn't take it too seriously, but it is I don't know, it's strange, man.
I paid $1 to see this movie in the theater in 1969.
I want it back.
I want them to think about this.
It's funny because this movie, I think because it moves so fast, I didn't catch a lot of this stuff until the second time I watched it. Or even like now when we're watching these clips, I'm like pulling stuff. So your first run through, you're like, it's a cute family jaunt. You don't need to think too hard about it. But then my logical brain just sort of starts in anyways, because that's what I do. I'm like, wait a minute. How does that? Hey, they're trying to, hey, that's not real. Like, oh, of course not. We're back in the offices of Medfield College, where the dean is watching Dexter assist the top diamond cutter in the world cut this massive diamond exactly in half. Professor tells Dean that Dexter hasn't registered for the upcoming semester yet, and the two men rush off to do God knows what. So Dexter does like some other stuff too, and I didn't really know what to say, but I suppose one of the scenes he's like watching a rocket launch, and AJ Arno calls and Dexter's like on the platform. Presumably he assisted in some calculations or something like that. I don't know what happened, but and then they buzz Arno through, and he's an investment banker. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But
no, my mind starts melting in this whole scene. I'm like, because just like you said, you go, wait, hold on. My literal brain says it couldn't happen. He's in a safe distance from this rocket, but he's clearly on site.
Right.
And yes, he did something. He looked over the last calculations to make sure they're perfect. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's and then what happens? Arno calls the base or wherever they are and says, hey, can I speak to Dexter real quick? It's AJ Arno. Do you know me? I'm an investment banker, local.
And how did he know he was there? It was weird.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Arno says he's going to go pick him up at the airport. He's going to talk to Dexter about joining his organization. And as Dexter lands, his friends are all there waiting for him, cheering him on and waving and stuff like that. But he's immediately intercepted by the dean, who is reminding him to register for the upcoming quarter. And Dexter, I don't know why I picked this out, but Dexter's wearing just the strangest mix of clothes here. He has a light blue double-breasted suit jacket, pinstriped, with a bright yellow shirt and some kind of like ascot. Although it's not even an ascot. Yeah. It's like just literally like a neckerchief tied at the top, and like the two ends are just kind of like hanging around, and it's very busy. I can't say it looks good or stylish, but it does look like he's at least an important person, or that he has a little bit of money now. It's definitely a different, higher class of clothes. But
someone is styling him.
Correct. Yes. But it's also sort of matches the editing and writing style of the movie. It's chaotic. It's everywhere. It doesn't make any sense, but it looks good. The dean is there, and he's trying to get Dexter to enroll again for the next quarter, like I said, but Dexter says he's not sure if he wants to enroll in Medfield, and then brushes off his friends because he has to go meet with Honor. He's the most important person in the town. Meanwhile, you were just on a platform at NASA, but that's fine. Go meet with the local investment banker because he's important. That's fine.
Yeah, right, because later he's got a chamber meeting.
And I kind of do wonder, I'm siding with Dexter here, because I wonder what good enrolling in college would do for him. He's a human computer. Like, what is he going to learn?
Yeah.
What is college going to teach him?
I know, if anything, they should be offering him a job in teaching the computer.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, you would think.
He should be taking the Professor Quigley's job.
Or, hey, come and head up our computer facility or whatever, and like get us into the mainstream or whatever. Yeah. So it turns out that the meeting that him and Arno are having is at the Santa Anita Raceway, the racetrack in Southern California, where Arno is getting Dexter to bet on horses. And here's a side note. My grandma worked at Santa Anita Raceway for like 40 years in the turf club. And then when she passed away, they had like a whole like a race dedicated to her. And we got to go down in the field and like watch the race and stuff. And it was really sweet. But yeah, she worked there. Like instantly, I recognized like the turns, and maybe I'm wrong, but because honestly, all racetracks kind of look the same. I think it's Santa Anita. I don't know. I could be very wrong, but it's kind of neat. I was like, oh, that's cool, man. It would have been about the time, too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Dexter picks a horse for Arno, and the horse ends up winning. And in total, Dexter wins Arno like $28,000. And I think it's only of like 5 or 6 races. So Arno's betting big. He's a heavy hitter. He's a whale, man.
Yeah.
He immediately splits off and goes someplace else. And as he's leaving, he tells his assistant, Chili, to take Dexter out to Garibaldi's for pizza. Okay, this is thanks, man. I ditched my friends to win you $28,000, and you're going to have your assistant buy me pizza? Cool. Dexter pulls up to Garibaldi's. Both the dean of Medfield and the guy from the state college had followed Dexter. They enter the place, and it's a casino, which is, kind of weird.
It does not look like it serves pizza.
No, it doesn't.
At all.
Then the cops burst through the door and announce a raid, which I loved this scene because they have one guy on the megaphone yelling at everyone that the exits are guarded and, whatever. And then there's a guy behind him that's holding out a card. So the first cop with the megaphone can read the Miranda rights to the crowd. And at one point, they're both holding on to the same card. Because I guess, like, in my mind, I go, this is my problem, right? In my mind, I go, okay, so the guy holding the card originally is an extra. He has no lines.
Yeah.
And so then the cop with the megaphone goes like, well, I can just hold the stupid thing. I have 2 hands. One hand's on the megaphone. I could be reading. And the extra's like, I don't want to lose my job, bro. You're going to cut me out of the scene. Why would they keep me here? So I'm going to hold on to it too. So they're both holding on to it.
So funny. Oh, God, that's so funny.
Dude, the dean and the other guy from the state college, which I guess is the other dean from the college, Chili, who's Arno's right-hand man, and Dexter are all arrested, where we have Dexter having an epiphany.
Well, it was that academic fleabag that taught Dexter Riley everything he knows. You just want him for that college knowledge program, and you know it.
Everyone's just out for himself. It was like that everywhere I went. Everyone's just out for himself.
Oh, you mean those guys? Don't let them bother you, man. You stick with me.
Who are you thinking of, Mr. Walski?
Oh, come on, will you, kid? You're supposed to be smart, some sort of genius. Don't you think everybody thinks about themselves? Huh?
Okay, kid, you've been bailed out.
Which is very funny because it's like, he just goes, oh, you mean those guys? Don't worry about it. And then Dexter goes, who did you think I was talking about? Those guys, the ones I just said. Isn't that?
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever.
2 things. One, I love the way that guy talks.
Chili?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be the number one way I would love to speak. Everything that guy says is gold. I love it. And then 2, I love this scene in the fact that it's probably one of the better written scenes because it's slow but thoughtful. Like everything that somebody says in this scene actually has some weight and value.
Yeah, it's clear that Dexter's finally realizing that people like him because he is a computer and not because he has any other like redeemable qualities.
Yeah, and it's a nice moment between 2 people that actually feels the most real of anything else in this movie. And then I like that the transition goes from, hey, what do you think, guy? Everybody's out for themselves, right? And then a moment later, there's like 18 kids who've like gotten enough money together to get him out.
Yeah.
They were thinking of not themselves.
I think that scene works really well because of Chili, the actor who played Chili, because his delivery of these lines and the way he approaches the scene is very like casual but caring. Like he sort of cares about Dexter now a little bit. Because there was some conflict at the racetrack where, Chili's like, babe, boss, what are you going to do? Listen to this kid? And Arno's like, I listened to you for 30 years or whatever he said. But then he's like, oh, come on, kid, we'll stick with me. And you can still get some of that intonation of Chili's like, oh yeah, stick with me. Don't worry about anybody else but me. I'm here for you because, I know you can help me. But I don't know. It's just, you're right. It's one of the better scenes in the movie.
Well, and there's a built-in. I think there's a built-in quality of like people. We watch movies where people who talk like that usually have had hard lives.
Yeah.
So it's like he came to this realization about sticking to number one, watching out for yourself, because he's probably been, kicked around a lot in his life. And like, this is where he's stuck at.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the way he's delivering it, it's like, this is from hard lived. This isn't just because, I'm some money hungry, like banker or whatever,
Right.
It's like survival.
Yeah. A cop enters the jail, as you heard, and says Dexter has been bailed out. And as Dexter exits the jail, he sees that it was not A.J. Arno that bailed him out, as everybody was expecting, but it was his friends, all cobbling money together to pay his bail. Arno didn't care enough, and that sets Dexter kind of on the right path again. He goes back into the jail room or whatever, and tells the dean that he'll come by and fill out the form to attend the next quarter at Medfield. So we cut to some kind of room. Like I said, maybe it was the dorm or whatever. It was the same room where they were watching TV. Dexter is reading encyclopedias. He's studying for this college knowledge program that we sort of didn't really know that he was invited to, but, by proxy, I guess. And by reading, I mean, he's scanning with his fingers while he beeps. Here's another episode of him beeping again. The professor comes in and says Dexter needs 3 more people for his team for the college knowledge program, and the dean has handed him some suggestions. But as we learn in the next scene, the dean doesn't like the picks that Dexter has chosen, but they have to use them to keep Dexter happy, because Dexter's like the star quarterback, right? And he's like, I don't like his wide receivers, or I don't know, whatever football term, but we have to do it anyway, because we already established in the first part that a lot of these students that we see throughout in his friend group, like Pete and Skylar and whatever, are dumb. They're not smart.
Dumb as rocks.
Yeah, but Dexter picks them because he's a true friend to come on this college knowledge program. And the dean's like, oh, good, we're toast. But at least we have Dexter, so it's fine. So we're back at the TV station set in the middle of a very tense battle between Medfield and Rockhurst College. Medfield gets thrown a question, and Dexter doesn't think it would be a good idea if he answered all of the questions. So he gives the answers to his buddies, and let's hear how that goes, because as you can imagine, probably goes really, really well.
Directed to our Medfield panel. For 10 points each, please name the 3 greatest sculptors of the golden age of Greece.
Okay, Skylar, you answer this one.
What?
It doesn't look good if I answer all the questions. Now, there were 3 sculptors. Phidias, who did a statue of Athena, and Praxiteles, who specialized in human figures, and there was Myron, who sculptured the figure of a discus thrower. Kind of like the best thing ever done. Okay, you got it?
Got what?
Gentlemen, you have 20 seconds.
Well, tell him.
I think I misunderstood the question, sir.
You tell him, Henry.
Who's that guy, Merlin?
Not Merlin, Myron.
Is he the guy who threw the shot put?
It wasn't a shot put, it was a discus, and he didn't throw it, he was a sculptor.
Gentlemen, your time is almost up.
I think I misunderstood the answer, sir.
You did.
The newspaper transitions us to the next scene again by saying that Medfield advanced and will meet Patterson in the quarterfinals. So, I don't know what kind of slow news month these people are having, but we get intense updates on the college knowledge program. We fade up and into the previously mentioned quarterfinals, which, of course, Medfield wins. They move on to face State in the semifinals, and after that game has ended, the dean from State tells the dean from Medfield that if he had any integrity, he'd withdraw Dexter from the team due to him being an intellectual freak. We jump through to the semis, where Medfield is leading Franklin College 400 to 60. Dexter is ripping through the questions, running the field, absolutely dominating. We cut to Arno, who's watching, and he's lamenting the fact that Dexter didn't join his organization. And of course, something intense happened here. I got a little bit of that as well.
You won't even answer the phone when I call.
But, boss, how did I know there was going to be a raid? I mean...
Will you shut up? I want to hear this.
However, we have time for one more question, and I will direct it to our Medfield panel. The Department of Agriculture stated last year that people of the United States consume more apples than any other country. Some of that consumption was in the liquid form. Can you give the phrase in slang for the central unfrozen portion in a container of frozen cider?
Applejack.
That's absolutely right.
Applejack.
Applejack, Chisholm City Social Club, 137 Feb 29, Animals 740, Tables 6.
Hey, boss, I had nothing to do with this, I swear.
500. Applejack, Pompeii Palace.
Arno, of course, and his team flips their wigs because this is all of their sensitive information being leaked all over the television. This is what we heard in the lab. This is what Dexter was beeping about in bed that one night. So they freak out, even though it's in code form, supposedly. I mean, I don't know. Arno calls the social club that's mentioned and gives the fellow who answers his code name, Applejack. That's how we know it's Arno. Arno is Applejack.
Dun, dun, dun.
Arno demands that the club be shut down until further notice and sends his man, Chili, to go pick up Dexter. Now, Dexter's blonde friend Annie is reporting him missing, and the professor goes into a dark place, suggesting that with Dexter's, quote, peculiar brain, he might have had an attack of amnesia and wandered off somewhere. So Dexter's missing because Chili kidnapped him, right? And the professor's like, well, he could just be dead somewhere. I don't know, it seems so weird. Like, instead of worrying about him, he's like, well, it's a very real possibility that he walked into the woods and he's just not
he could
existing
be in his
anymore.
underwear screaming on an overpass somewhere.
Yeah. Of course, the dean asserts that State had kidnapped Dexter, so Medfield loses this college knowledge program, and then State can win the money. So there's a $100,000 prize attached to this, which is a lot of money.
Which I actually did the amount for that. That would be over $800,000 now.
Which I was thankful that the dean said this because I've forgotten. And it reminded me what the stakes were for this whole college knowledge thing and why Medfield had to win. It was a good bit of exposition. I had forgotten. We cut back to the dorm room, or maybe it's the common room. We still haven't figured that out. Anyway, Dexter's friends, Pete and Annie, are listening to a replay of the TV show where Dexter rattled off Arno's information, and they're trying to figure out what it all means. And I have a little bit of these kids, these wonder kids, trying to figure out what you and I just sorted out already right here, right? That it was Arno.
How come he doesn't remember this? Pete, it doesn't make sense.
Unless he'd never read it or seen it or heard it before. It was in the computer.
Of course.
When he got that big giant shock, he was not only able to remember and think like a computer, but all the information that was in the computer was sapped into him and he didn't even know it. And now he blurts it all over the TV. Well, that's why he's missing.
A.J. Applejack. A.J. Arno.
A code name.
Applejack.
The two kids pass this recording off to Skylar, who's the redheaded kid, if you watch this movie, who then goes to the police and gives the rundown of what Pete and Annie came up with to the cops. And much like the plot advancement in Moon Pilot, we've now heard the push into Act 3 almost 4 times in as many minutes. I want to bring up this point because it sort of cemented really fast here with me. So back to the mention when Professor Quigley was going through and saying, our friends at the computer, at the NASA base, let's call it NASA because that's what the space program. Sure. They owned this computer before Arno, and they sent us these tapes that had these calculations on them. The implication to me is they removed whatever tapes came with it, and then they put the space tapes in, right? But Pete is saying, well, all this information that Dexter's beeping to Applejack, casino stuff or whatever, that was on the computer already. But the professor said the tapes that were in the computer were from NASA, not from Arno. Just didn't make sense timeline-wise.
I have a couple of theories about this. One is that's what he was told, is that those tapes were from NASA, and either A.J. Arno recorded over them because they don't know anything about computers or anything like that, or I actually wonder if Arno bought, because he clearly has that guy who runs the computer for him. I'm wondering if he bought this computer.
O'Brien.
And the implication is that he used the calculations of anything that would go wrong on a space flight as a way to also figure out how to calculate bets and how to calculate money flow. And
you know what? I like that. I think that's a solid, but Quigley specifically said the space program sent them the tapes.
Yeah.
Bypassing Arno.
That's how there's only one way I can put that together, and that's if Arno already had the tapes, and then you're right. That's the hard thing, is because if it was sent directly to him, and that's the problem with the language in this movie, it's a little sloppy. Yeah. Right? Because they talk about computer brains. He has a computer-like brain. You know,
we see a computer in his brain.
But yeah, I mean, we could go on forever about that. But you're right.
Yeah.
That is the problem with that, because otherwise, I think my idea would work. I agree. He got a hold of this stuff, and he's like, hey, these calculations can calculate all sorts of crap. Wind distance, they can calculate rain, all this. I'll know if it's raining, 20% fewer people are going to come to the, my restaurant or, my casino. I'm going to cut the budget for the day.
Yeah.
It's weird stuff like that.
I think that'd be great. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. We're back at Arno's place, and the two kids from earlier, Pete and Annie, are on a stakeout, and they're following Arno as he climbs into his car and goes one way, while Chili goes another way, in a really nice cherry red fastback Mustang, by the way.
Oh, God, yeah.
The two kids follow his stooge, as they put it, and he leads them to an old house way out in the country. They park and approach the house quietly on foot, and overhear one of the men placing bets on some racehorses. Peeking in the window, they see the man on the phone talking, and Dexter sitting right next to him, holding the newspaper in one hand and a hunk of fried chicken in the other. This man has a KFC, 12-piece bucket, overflowing, brimming with wings and legs. And he's just macking on it, man. He loves it.
So jealous.
The man on the phone hangs up, and he gets called to the next room by another man who tells him Arno wants them to kill Dexter and dump his body in the morning. Of course, Dexter overhears this, and he's like surprised or whatever. Meanwhile, the two kids, Pete and Annie, rather than trying to rescue their friend then and there, drive all the way back into town to talk to the group to see what they should do. They agree that calling the police would be the easy way, but then Dexter would end up in jail with Arno's men. Some of the kids are like, yeah, we'd take a bullet for Dexter. And Pete says, no, they have to stay home because they have to represent the school in the college knowledge program in the morning. So that's the most important thing, I guess. Pete has a plan, one that will allow the kids to have the run of the house. To me, that was great because it's like, our friend is right here. There are two other people in this house. We could easily call the cops and say, hey, he was kidnapped. But no, let's not do that. Let's do my insane plan, which was dressing up as painters. All the kids, this next scene we transition to is all the kids are dressed up as painters, and they're painting the outside of the house that Dexter's being held in. They have scaffolding up, and half the house is done already in two different colors, by the way. One of Arno's men opens the front door to collect the milk delivery. Yes, even at the hideout, crooks and kidnappers need that fresh milk. And he flips out about the painters, and quickly they hide Dexter upstairs so nobody sees him, and they go and confront the kids, and they go, oh, what are you guys doing? Like, oh yeah, here's our work order. We're here to paint the house. And then they're like, okay, that's fine. You can stay and paint the house. We have a kid to kill, but that's fine. Don't worry about it. Now, the kids are painting the house these absurd colors, the green and orange, but it took, again, a couple watch throughs for it to click, but it seems like a very specific shade of green and orange that a very specific TV villain would have painted all over his hideout. It's that bright orange and that bright green that are very, very similar, if not exact, to the Joker in the Batman TV series. And they're painting every other slat. There's no consistency. Yeah. There's no work ethic. See, people today talk about kids today. No one wants to work today. Go back and watch this section. Okay. Nobody wants to work.
When you're going to hatch a scheme where you're going to pretend to be painters to do the long play of rescuing your friend. Yeah. Right. All the way to the point of where they're like, hey, if anybody calls, say we're painters. We're actually having business cards made. It's going to take a day.
It was wild, man. But I thought it was really funny, actually, that these kids are painting the secret lair of the guy who played the Joker, the same colors as the Joker. It was really neat. Yeah. And again, it's one of those nods, right? So we're cutting back to the TV station again for the start of this college knowledge program, which I believe is the finals. And the dean is learning that Dexter is missing. The dean from state comes over to gloat about their impending victory, and we cut back to Dexter's friends and their insane plan that was much better than calling the cops. We jump right in the middle of them pouring a gallon of green paint into the gas tank of Chili's fastback Mustang. This must have been before locking gas caps, I guess.
Yeah.
Arno arrives and susses out that the kids are really Dexter's pals, and he gets assurances that the plan to get Dexter out of the house is a good one. They're going to be fine. Everything will be great. Boss shouldn't worry about it. We cut upstairs and find that the evil plan to sneak Dexter out and kill him is to just stuff Dexter in a steam trunk and carry him out the front door.
Yep.
Like, that's it. But the men are foiled by paintbrush-wielding students. Pete and a couple other guys ambush these two men coming for Dexter. They grab the trunk with Dexter in it, drag it into a nearby room, try to push it out the window, but they leave it there. And they go and reinforce the door behind them so nobody can come in, right? The trunk slips out of the window and falls down to the first-story ground. It's a 2-story house, by the way. And we cut to Dexter inside the trunk, upside down, holding his head, and we hear this kind of like weird winding down noise, like a stereotypical computer running out of power, like whatever. The kids load the trunk into the paint truck, and they split, with hilarity ensuing as all the kidnappers race out of the house and slip all over the spilled and splashed paint. Trying to follow the kids, everyone clambers into their individual cars, but the paint and the gas tanks make short work of that. The only working car around is Dexter's little sand dune buggy. So, of course, all the gang jumps in there and gives chase.
Yeah, and this is the greatest scene. I actually love this so much because the moment all the bad guys jump into that dune buggy, I just want them to start playing the 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4. Like this is now a 1960s chase from the Banana Splits.
Yeah, exactly. I assumed it was going to be like really obvious green screen like in Batman, and it kind of almost was, which was nice.
There's a couple of scenes with the kids, especially when they're like, hey, let's get this paint ready. And it's like clearly like, but like I think the villains for the most part, they looked like they were pretty live.
They did pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The kids start dumping barrels of paint out of the back of the truck in an effort to stop the bad guys from chasing them, which does not work. Until someone turns on a paint sprayer and sprays paint at the car, which does work. It hits Arno in the face, goes all over the windshield, and they drive the buggy into a bale of hay, to a giant hay bale that's, not bound at all. It's not even a bale, it's a pile of hay. So that cuts us over to the TV station where the finals of College Knowledge are taking place. State is currently ahead of Medfield 45-0. So not an insurmountable lead, but a lead nonetheless. The 3 kids up for Medfield are just dumb as posts. They have zero idea what the moderator is talking about, and they pass on the question posed to them, with one kid calling the moderator, Your Honor. We're back at the police station now. The cops checked out the kid's story about Arno and now have enough evidence to arrest him. And this scene, it's very brief, but it's very important. This scene lasts literally 21 seconds. I counted. I added up the time code. It's 21 seconds. But we need to know that, okay, Arno's getting caught and whatever. So now we're back at the TV station, Matt. We're back. We're jumping around. The kids pull up at the station.
Love to be back.
Yeah. It's good to be back here, Matt. The kids pull up at the station and they finally unlock the trunk to release Dexter, who says he has a ringing in his head and he isn't sure if he's all right. So it's kind of foreshadowing. His pals pull him out of the box, but he can't stand up. He's all in a heap. They're bouncing him around the ground. It's a very weird scene. But anyways, his buddies get him into the TV studio. They help him on stage right in time for the start of the second half of the show. Dexter gets his first question right, giving Medfield their first points of the game, but something is off. He's hesitant and he's kind of stuttering. Like everything in this movie, time is compressed. I mean, we learned earlier that the College Knowledge program has been happening for the last 15 weeks.
I know, that's nuts, right?
So this is just sort of like a montage, I guess. But Dexter answers another question this stuttering way, and I'm over it. But he gets it correct. They're 15 points ahead now. As State gets the next question, Dexter looks really shook. He's clearly in some trouble. State gets their question right, and it's back to Medfield. And I can't anymore with this. And apparently Dexter can't either, because he acts like a computer and he sort of powers down, giving State the last question and the points.
New York City was the first capital of the United States. For 10 points, can you name the second capital of the United States and what year it was moved to Washington?
Come on, Dexter, hang on for another minute.
Philadelphia moved
Yump. Oh, he's gone, Quigley. He's completely gone.
I can't love it.
He might be dead.
Anymore,
Could
dude.
somebody get up?
Yeah, no one cares. That's what I mean. He could be having an aneurysm, and nobody
He was electrocuted.
cares. Right.
Right?
Yes.
There could be lesions in his brain that just haven't leaked out yet.
Yeah.
And this could be it.
It's time for
severe stress.
It's time for the last question. And this is the one that will determine the winner because, State gets those points because Dexter died.
Yeah.
Dexter realizes that he's lost his computer brain abilities and he's just like he was before. But luckily, an unexpected hero rises from the ashes of this competition like a phoenix would.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. And, and it's our boy, Skyler.
We have time now for one last question. A 10-pointer for Medfield. And this will determine the winner. A small Midwest city is located exactly on an area designated as the geographic center of the United States for 10 points and $100,000. Can you tell us the name of that city?
Come on, Dexter, think. I can't. I've had it. I'm just like I used to be.
But you know this one. We talked about it before. Remember, it's that place where my uncle owns the dry cleaning store. I've told you about it 1,000 times. You know, they have those signs at the edge of town that... I know. For the first time in 15 weeks, I know an answer. I know.
He knows?
I know.
Yes, well, sit down and give us an answer.
I know.
You have 3 seconds left.
Lebanon, Kansas.
That is absolutely correct, and Medfield wins the $100,000 prize.
Everybody wins. Everybody's happy. Medfield wins. And you think everything's over. But all is not okay. As Arno and the crew arrive at the station, the kids flee and Arno chases after them, but they end up running directly into a police car, which was the scene we didn't need, but it happened and we saw it. Okay, so we're winding down. We're back in the conference room to wrap things up. And it's just like the first scene with the board meeting and the kids listening in again via the microphone and the flowers. This time, the dean suggests that instead of getting the suggested electroheliosspectrograph as the professor wants, they should invest the money and use the funds to fix the plumbing. Basic stuff, right? All the kids are bummed out, and Annie asks Dexter what an electroheliosspectrograph is. Dexter goes, I don't know. And she tells him that if they get one, he should stay away from it. Dexter put his arm around her shoulder, some groovy music plays, and the movie is now over.
Thank God.
We won. We won the money, which is very funny because they win the money and everything's cool. And then the dean of the college goes, well, you know what we'll do? We're going to invest it. And then in 5 years, we'll take that money and then fix the plumbing with the investment. It's like, well, why? Yeah. If the plumbing is that bad, what are you talking about? What is happening here? You just had your computer lab
electrocuted because water was running in your
computer lab floated away almost, bro. And but you're gonna wait 5 years for everything else.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, absolutely. So the movie is done. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I want to just talk real fast and maybe we'll wait. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a couple things I want to talk about that maybe make the movie feel a little more disjointed than usual. And then we're going to get into our facts and stuff like that. So hang on, everybody. It's the Buena Vista Boys. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are back talking about the computer wore tennis shoes. Of course, we didn't change topics in the 2 minutes that we've been gone. But here we are. We are about to go through Matt's segment where he talks about the facts and frivolity. But I just wanted to run through a little tiny list of these things that kind of never went anywhere. There were plot points that I thought would be kind of good additions to the movie. But it kind of made this film feel a little more disjointed than I think a normal movie. So I want to bring those up with you, Matt, and we'll just run through them real fast. I don't think that it needs any in-depth, analysis, but it's just fun stuff that, that's fun. So, for example, The kid's on probation. So when the dean goes, we're going to put everybody on probation, this literally never came up ever, ever, ever again. It's a neat device to inject some conflict between the kids and the dean, but like if the dean, takes them off probation, Dexter will re-enroll for the next quarter or whatever. Like it never happened.
Yeah. And Dexter didn't leverage his newfound knowledge to be like, hey,
Right.
if I, my friends go, I go, or anything like that.
Nothing.
And then you think that you're going to use it as a plot device for, these kids, they break the rules, or like, they go outside of authority. And it's like, what did we see them do? We saw them go and try to get a computer for Professor Higgins, like the nicest thing you could possibly do. Like, we should really do, or Quig. Is it Quiggins?
No, Higgins is the dean. Quigley is the professor.
Quigley. Yeah, because he's like, we should really do something for old Quigley.
Yeah.
And it's like, so they go do something nice and respectful. Yeah.
And then just get yelled
and
at.
then later, these guys come up with a fake paint company, put all this stuff together. Like, there's no correlation between them being like dumb and like low thinkers in the movie. Like it shows them being smart and like actually charming and interesting and motivated.
Yeah. Well, speaking of them being low thinkers, Medfield is a private college, the next one. So why is the college at the beginning so uptight about a handful of kids not making great grades?
Yeah.
The check's clear, dude. Like, why do you care?
Absolutely.
And they make it a point later on. It's a private college. So you'd think, number one, they have the money to fix the plumbing. But also, who cares? The next one, why did Arno gift the computer to the college at all? Was it to save 10 grand because he could then not make the 20 grand donation when he was literally walking past piles of cash in his basement? And he was clearly using the dang thing to track his money from all the illegal businesses that apparently you can just call the operator and get connected to, by the way. Did he buy a new computer? Did he like get rid of the old one to then buy a new one to upgrade it? And why didn't he erase the data out of the computer first? Like, what? He just, it's like if you have a fake book, like a fake accounting book, and you go, oh, my old accounting school needs an accounting book. I'll give them mine. And you don't rip the pages out of the book and you go, here's all my illegal stuff too.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest sticking point for me in this movie is what was the motivation to give over the computer you're actively using to commit crime?
Right. There is none.
There is. I mean, here's the thing. Okay, and I'll leave it alone after this. It would be a great plot device to find out that somebody like the FBI or somebody is trying to shake him down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to get rid of the computer before they find it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's too good, maybe. It's too good at doing its job. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, and now people are noticing, and he has got to get rid of this thing because he knows somebody's going to be coming soon, and they can't have the evidence.
Yes, but have it be installed at the college, but have it running at night when there's no one there.
Thank you. Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So then you can't track it down.
Have something where Dexter Riley is accidentally delivering at night, not knowing a sub-program.
Yes.
He's coming to a window and going, Vader 254, Annibal, Cracker Jack.
Maybe that's why it turns on when he's trying to reinstall the logic board.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets shocked because it's timed to go on. They remade this in 1995, and I would be interested to half watch it. I would be interested to hear when you watch it and tell me about it, because I would love to know if they correct some of these things.
Oh,
we never end up seeing the things from Dexter's brain in the doctor's office, like the can girls or the women in the bikini with the bubbles. Which I guess that last one was supposed to be just like a weird teenage boy brain, like teenage.
I think it's an amalgamation.
Yeah.
Of like all of the underworld frivolity going on, and then and then he's like, I like chicks too.
Yeah, hey, I'm just a classic straight guy in college, bro.
Just a bikini gal.
Yeah, There's also no real frame of reference for the passing of time in this, and I know we talked about it, but I guess it just dawned on me when we were talking about that segment that the whole college knowledge stuff took 15 weeks, and everything's really compressed. And sometimes I think it's just one day after another because that's the magic of editing. But then there are little hints that longer sections of time have passed. So it made the thing very frantic for me.
Mm-hmm. It all felt like, it was like maybe 3 weeks long.
Maybe
that's how long it felt.
Yeah, maybe. Because they do some of that. It's like the computer gets fried, then Dexter gets fried, then the next day he's back in class. That's the next day because we've established that. But then suddenly it's 2 weeks later, but we don't know that until 18 scenes down the road when we learn it's been 15. It's just the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't recall a time when Dexter was actually invited on the college knowledge program. They maybe hint at it when like the sponsor visits the dean's office, but that's kind of about it. They omit this whole thing. But look, all movies have faults, and I don't want to sit here and try to make a list of things that are bad or reasons why the movie sucks or whatever, but they're just things that stood out to me as having great potential to help the script, but they didn't go anywhere. They just didn't really do anything. And I think that when that happens, you end up having a movie that's very, like I said, like hectic like this. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, no, I echo that. Like, I think the issue with having all these things that are being said that don't go anywhere, it starts putting your brain down these avenues that dead end, and then it really starts confusing you about what the hell is this movie about, or even when their language isn't the same across the board, like with their electronic brain or electronic-like brain or a computer-like brain. Like, what is everyone saying?
Sometimes for me with those, especially with this movie, I find myself shutting down or turning off or not investing so much into what's happening. And it's just sort of like brain candy or eye candy, where it's just like, oh, I'm confused, but I'm going to keep going because it doesn't really matter. And they do such a good job with the pacing as far as getting you through these moments where even if you had a problem with the last scene, you're on to the next scene and you're in the middle of the plot in 2 seconds. So you don't have a chance to then reflect on what you just saw, which is kind of a neat trick if you think about it.
They're like, no, don't think about it too much. Just keep going. Let's go.
Yeah. Anyway, Matt, let's get some facts and frivolity going on here.
Okay. No, there's actually some really good stuff here. It's not super long. And I think we both tried in earnest to like really try to get different things like about the production and whatnot. But there's some interesting things about the people who are in this movie and Kurt Russell himself, actually. So I started off by saying that we should have watched 1971's Barefoot Executive because you still get a befuddled-faced Kurt Russell, but they sweeten the deal with a TV-loving chimp.
Oh, man, that sounds great.
Right?
I love a chimp.
Because we both love Moon Pilot for the chimp.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this movie kind of drags. And I was like, well, that's a best of both worlds. The movie, because we talked about this earlier, if the movie felt like it was like 60s television, it might be because director Robert Butler had a long history of directing television before this movie. I think this actually might have been one of his first feature films. It might have been his first actual movement into film.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, him and the gentleman who wrote this, I think this is one of their first, Joseph Micavetti. I think this is their first film. But the reason it also feels like there's that Batman vibe is because, he directed like The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, Have Gun Will Travel, Bonanza, Star Trek, Hawaii Five-0. Later, he even directed Lois and Clark episodes, but he directed 6 episodes of the 1966 Batman.
Oh, there you go.
And the funny thing is, I went through all the episodes that he did. Yeah. None of them feature the Joker.
Okay.
He never worked with Cesar Romero before this.
Oh, man. That's too bad.
Isn't that crazy, though?
What's funny?
Doesn't it feel like he did?
Yeah, right? What's funny about Cesar Romero is that just looking at him, because I've like everybody, I guess, my age, I've seen episodes of the Batman series. And I always thought Cesar Romero was younger because in this movie he's older, but there's a 3-year difference between the 1966 Batman and when this came out. Like, I don't know.
I thought that same thing.
Yeah, I see. In this movie, he didn't track as Joker age. To me, I felt like this was a movie where you get later in life when like this is like one of your last few acting gigs to like get, pad your pockets before you retire. That's what I clocked it as.
When they first came to visit him, I honestly thought this was like, before I realized the timeline, I thought this was like a decade later. This was like 10 years after Batman almost. His face had widened out.
Yep.
Right? He'd gotten kind of more broad.
Yeah.
Because, he was much thinner and his head smaller and his hair wackier in that show. But 3 years, isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
Okay. And of course, I have to mention that Robert Butler directed 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone.
Of course.
Season 5, episode 28, Caesar and Me.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Which is about a guy who has a ventriloquist dummy who encourages him to commit petty crime.
I love
he's a
that
terrible
one. That's a good
ventriloquist.
one. Yeah.
Yes, that is a great one. Then there's actually a really good one. It's season 5, episode 31. And it kind of links to his Star Trek days because it's George Takei and another gentleman. And you find out that George Takei and this other gentleman actually had brief conflict, I think, in World War II. And so they end up having I believe, a duel on the grounds of this guy's house.
Wow.
With some of the artifacts that he has from World War II. Interesting.
Okay.
So Butler actually did come back and direct the next movie in this Medfield trilogy called Now You See Him and Now You Don't.
Okay.
He did not come back for the third movie. That's directed by a different gentleman.
Nice.
Gene Siskel, February 11th, 1970 issue of the Chicago Tribune reports, I rather enjoyed the computer wore tennis shoes, and I suspect children under 14 will like it too.
Which seems like either like an insult to himself, like a self-own, or I don't know. It's like very weird.
Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be sincere or a dig. I really can't tell.
Yeah.
But then Kevin Thomas, February 13th, 1970 issue of Los Angeles Times wrote, Disney Productions latched on to a terrific premise for some sharp satire, only to flatten it out by jamming it into its familiar, wholesome formula. Alas, the movie itself comes out looking like it had been made by a computer.
Trying to think about what's satirical in there, but I don't know. Maybe like the college board or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I just think the dialogue that runs between the students and, just
maybe,
like, I don't know, the level of plot, like how high the plot actually rises in this movie.
Sure.
Medfield College, if you didn't know, is also where The Absent-Minded Professor and Son of Flubber take place. So in 1961, so 8 years earlier, this same college brought us Flubber.
Right.
And everything that happened there. And it's like, and these guys are still broke.
I know.
Because don't forget, they not only did they make Flubber, Son of Flubber made Flubber gas. Which was like an anti-gravity gas.
See, I wonder if the technological, aspirations or wonders in the Flubber movies led to the invention of the thought capture machine that the Doctor had. You know what I mean? How do we get there?
This world makes sense now. All
you
right.
know what? I think Medfield College is the Wakanda of the Disney live action universe.
I know. I think there's ley lines there too, because in the next movie, Dexter's invisible juice only works because he gets hit by lightning.
Oh my God.
And so there's lots of different stuff at play here. Remember, at the beginning we were scrutinizing that establishing shot of the campus, right? And so the campus shown outside the window of the dean's office, which I watched multiple times and was trying to sync up pictures, is actually photographs of the building of the Walt Disney Studios. And so I was looking at that. I was looking at the Walt Disney Studio campus and then going back to that scene. The early scene where the students eavesdrop on the meeting of the school officials takes place on the patio of the studio commissary. The bikes positioned around look like the actual bikes the studio staff would use to get around the campus as well.
Yeah,
and they probably were.
So that is the Walt Disney Animation Studio lot that they are on. And so when the kids are walking, when they're listening to the transistor,
yeah,
that's the actual, they're walking by one of the animation buildings. They're on the animation campus.
Got it.
And I saw that because we happened to get a tour one year, and I saw that scene and instantly I was like, that's the friggin' animation. That's crazy to me.
This movie cost them nothing then. It's like this.
Yeah, right. We'll put it here. It's fine. Let's shoot it there. It's all right.
It'll be great. But then I noticed this. This is something I thought was interesting. There's a scene where Dexter Riley is coming out and Chili goes, hey, kid, you drive, right? And he's going to let him drive his awesome car. And then the two deans show up, and Dean Higgins shows up in a 1964 Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, like it's two-tone blue and white. And the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, that's Susie, the little blue coupe from the 1952 Disney short. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily the same car because she was like a random vehicle, but it looks just like her. Like if you go back and watch that, I thought that was so funny. I don't think that was on purpose, but I was like, that's kind of a cool nod on accident.
That's cool.
If you watch this movie, there is a shaggy ape-looking man who's running around, and he sounds a lot like Freddy from Scooby-Doo, and that is because this is one of Frank Welker's few acting roles. He plays Henry Farthington. And he's part of the college knowledge group.
Okay.
He has this weird shaggy, it's like somebody gave him a bowl haircut and it grew out a little bit. It looks like his head is just a haystack. And in the scene where they're taking the test, for some reason, he leans over to one of the other students and goes, "Funny guy." to Dexter, like about Dexter's behavior. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But for people who don't know, for some reason, Frank Welker has over 890 separate acting credits to his name, and it's nearly all voice work. He's voice worked everything. And it really feels like Hanna-Barbera had him locked in a recording booth like the Man in the Iron Mask for like at least 2 decades.
Yeah.
He's most famously, like I said, the voice of Freddie Jones from Scooby-Doo. He later took over the voice of Scooby-Doo from Don Mezek. He was Megatron and Soundwave from Transformers. He was Dr. Claw to Don Adams' Inspector Gadget. He was Jabberjaw, Dino-Mutt. He was both Ray and Slimer from the real Ghostbusters. And I'm putting in a shameless plug for my other show because we were doing research for episode 6 of Shelter from Oblivion. We shelter with iconic 80s dogs. I found out that Frank Welker supplied voice work for Cujo.
Really?
Yeah. He did background growls for Cujo.
That's crazy, dude.
Why? Think about
I don't
getting
know.
that phone call. Hey, Frank,
I need you to growl for 4 hours.
We're really hard up. We can't get any of these dogs to growl. They're too nice.
God.
So the only other thing I want to mention, because I always like to mention something weird, is he did the voice for Curly of the Three Stooges in a cartoon that came out in 1977 called The Robonic Stooges. And I remember watching this when I was a kid. They used to play episodes of this on USA. It's the Three Stooges are now bionic secret agents fighting the forces of evil in their own unique style.
Dude.
Much to the dismay of their long-suffering boss, Agent, and it's spelled 000, but they pronounce it, oh.
I hate it. I don't know if you're a Stooges guy. I can't stand the Three Stooges. I can't. But even this seems like just let it go. Why are we?
Oh my God.
Why do we have a robotic secret agent
Jesus
Three Stooges?
Christ. Dude, they have Go-Go Gadget necks and everything. It's amazing.
We're gonna have a robotic secret agent, friggin' Adam Sandler one day. It's just like enough, man.
Well, yeah, it's
Sorry,
like I can't think of a funny person from like a long time ago that would have been hilarious to like turn him into a robot.
Jim Varney.
Electro Ernest. Oh, he was Electro Man actually, and Ernest goes to jail. So
there you go.
There was a guy that you had mentioned earlier that we wanted to talk about. He is the diamond cutter that makes the pop.
Yeah.
This gentleman, his name is Fritz Field. Or Fritz, I'm going to say Fritz Feld. I believe it's Fritz Feld. And he was born to a Jewish family in Berlin, Germany, and began his acting career all the way back in 1917. His first on-screen role was in The Golem and The Dancing Girl, which actually I have seen.
Really?
It's pretty good. It's part of a German silent film era. And after moving to the U.S., Feld toured with Morris Guest's production of The Miracle during the mid-1920s. Feld would go on to work with some of the biggest names in Hollywood history. He developed a memorable character trait that audiences loved, his famous pop sound, which he made by slapping his mouth with his hand, symbolizing both his superiority and his annoyance. Okay. All right. Some people juggle. Some people,
right. Yeah. I'm annoyed. Let me juggle.
In his later years, Feld made appearances in several Walt Disney films. He was also one of the iconic waiters in the 1969 classic Hello, Dolly.
There you go.
Okay.
Kid's working, man.
I know.
He's
We're
been
almost
working
done.
since 1913 or whatever.
1917. Yeah.
God.
Okay, television wasn't left out of his career either. He had appeared in a wide variety of shows, often in quirky, memorable roles. Surprise, surprise. One standout is his reoccurring role as Zumdish, the manager of the intergalactic celestial department store in Lost in Space.
Okay. All right, man.
Feld truly brought a unique flair to Hollywood, leaving his mark across both film and TV. And sir, I salute you.
Yes. R.I.P. All right.
Pop to you. Okay. So you and I had both talked about this earlier about Pete. The standout was clearly Pete.
100%. Him and Skyler, actually. Skyler was pretty good, too. Yeah, him and Pete. Pete was definitely number one.
I'm actually surprised that they didn't do some sort of spinoff where they started a detective agency out of a dorm or something like that.
That would have been cute.
Yeah, they worked really well together.
Yeah.
So Pete was played by Frank Webb, and Frank Webb was an actor who appeared in such television series like Dr. Marcus Welby, MD, and The Virginian, like you were talking about earlier, as everyone's on The Virginian.
Yeah.
He left Hollywood and worked as a minister while also driving a school bus in Slayton, Minnesota. He was killed in a road accident on December 20th, 1974, and while riding as a passenger in a car that was involved in a multi-vehicle collision at the intersection of Highway 30 and Highway 71 in Amboy Township, Minnesota, and died as a result of his injuries sustained. And his grave has no headstone on it.
I thought that was kind of the weirdest thing. So I found this because I have to look up certain things, and there's no Wikipedia page for him at all.
Man, that's
the
a bummer.
only information about his life after Hollywood is this thing that I kind of rewrote from there's a thing called like findagravestone.com or something like that. And it just, you can, presumably it's like famous people or whatever. I don't know what the deal is. But then there's a picture of like where his plot is, and there's like a couple gravestones, and then there's nothing. And then there's like another gravestone. So presumably that's him. But like, why doesn't he have a friggin' gravestone? I kind of want to like raise money for him. The kid was like a really good.
I know.
And then you can go to, here, I got to find it.
Well, the guy was like a minor heartthrob too. It's like, he's not any slouch.
I'm going to look it up because I can't not do it. It's called findagrave.com. And you can leave flowers, quote unquote, which are just comments.
Yeah.
So you can leave comments, and there's 51. And there's a lot of people who come on here and go, oh, I remember you. I saw your appearance on High Chaparral or whatever. And, or it's been the 45th memorial of your passing. And I saw you on Little House of the Prairie. And it's like all these people that are just come, and they'll be like, I last saw you 24 years ago on this. And I watch a movie every year that you died. Every year on your anniversary, I watch this for you or whatever. It's very nice and cool. It's a good legacy, but it's a little weird.
Yeah. But like, justice for Frank Webb then, I
know. So I tried to look up, I tried to go deep and like find the newspaper that reported the crash because I want to know more what happened. And
sure.
I couldn't find it. So
this is something we didn't talk about in the movie, but I really like this scene. So Dexter is shown all of these three paintings for the College Knowledge event. And they're paintings by Marcel Duchamp. And he had to name all of the paintings and when they were painted. And at the very end, he's like, oh, this is Nude Descending a Staircase, 1912. And at the very end of it, I think it's Skylar goes up and goes, a nude descending a staircase. Boy, that'd never make Playboy. Then I was like, well, okay, I've never heard of this really, but I'm going to have to look this up. So Nude Descending a Staircase, it's actually called Nude Descending a Staircase number 2. And Marcel Duchamp painted it.
Like Mambo number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, he painted it in 1912. And this is one of those things where it's like, you didn't know you needed to know this. But it exemplifies his extremely original engagement with Cubism. It also precipitated his break with the Cubists when Duchamp presented it for exhibition in Paris in 1912, fellow Cubists on the hanging committee tried to exclude it. They may have objected to the idea of painting dynamic movement or the unfamiliar subject of a nude on a flight of stairs, or the title written in block letters in the lower margin. When the work was finally presented at the Armory Show, which made the case for modern art to large audiences in New York in 1913, it was met with a hostile public reaction and cemented Duchamp's reputation as an artistic provocateur.
Yeah, and this thing, it's, the Cubist art movement is very strange, but it's called Nude Descending a Staircase #2. There's no discernible human form in it.
No.
It's a bunch of blocky flesh colored things spinning around. It's insane.
Yeah.
It is an insane painting.
It's
called Nude Descending a Staircase.
Yeah, I know, and the reason it's interesting to me is that, like, you look at what I think essentially a lot of people would say is just nonsense. In this community, it was provocative to be doing what he was doing. In Epcot's Journey into Imagination with Figment,
R.I.P.
I know. The sign next to the doors with Merlin's name on it also includes Dexter Riley's and Professor Quigley's name. And you can look this up. It's actually really interesting. I encourage you do, because it'll make more sense than me saying it. But yeah, there's like a computer room, and there's a Medfield High jacket, and there's these names on the side, and there's some awesome little red shoes outside the door.
Yeah.
So when you go there, the sign in front of the computer room door also reads "No tennis shoes allowed."
Well,
so
it
good.
did. It's gone.
Well,
now.
yeah. Yes, this was an in the past thing. I apologize.
Yeah.
This is no longer there, sadly.
No.
Like I said, there's a Medfield jacket there. And then over the loudspeaker, you can hear people say, "Dexter Riley, attention, Dexter Riley, you left your tennis shoes in the computer room." And that's great.
It's cool, but it's sort of like what we were saying earlier, where when TV shows and movies, and specifically advertisers, get a hold of like popular slang or what's hip and cool, they beat it to death.
Yeah.
That's what happened in this.
Yes.
They beat the premise of the joke to absolute sheer death. You left your tennis shoes. That's not the gag. What are you doing? The gag is enough. The Professor Quigley on the door, cute. Medfield jacket, cute. Tennis shoes, maybe, yeah, that's a little on those. Literally saying, "Hey, Dexter, don't turn into a friggin' computer," or "Watch out." I don't know.
Yeah.
I just, whatever. That's
well,
fine.
yeah, the no tennis shoes allowed. It's like, okay, well, what do you mean? Like, that wasn't a problem in the movie.
Also, he was wearing loafers
when
he got electrocuted. And that's the only time we ever saw his feet. So the computer wore tennis shoes. Doesn't make any sense.
When you go that deep in this gag, I don't know who this ultimately ends up being for. Like,
I don't know. Nobody.
They were very proud of themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I guess I'd rather have it than not, I suppose. So when we were talking about the opening, that wild opening that they have, technical advisor Ko Suzuki, who was working on the Walt Disney World project at the time, was called upon to design and program some of the electronic equipment that was needed, and created graphs showing the comparisons of the human mind and a computer for use in Professor Quigley's classroom lecture scene.
Yeah, but it's pretty neat, man. Like, so all the computer stuff was programmed by one of the, set designers or whatever for Walt Disney World.
So are we talking about the literal computers in the background?
I think
beep,
so.
Boop, beep. He was doing that.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and then like I guess I don't remember the specific graphs and everything of the human mind. Were those in the background?
No, so it was the lecture where Professor Quigley is showcasing what he's done with the computer as his little demonstration with the rain, open the window. And so it was right before, it's at the very beginning of that scene where he has it on like a poster board, and he's like, "This is how a computer works. You take the input and it feeds it to the memory, and then the memory goes to the action." And then he pulls another card and says, "It's like the human brain." And it's, yeah.
Okay. And I watched this movie twice. So
well, see, there you go. You miss something every time.
And the poster for this movie, there's kind of a strange font that they use for the computer wore tennis shoes. It's like that kind of globular font. I was looking it up, and the computer font used in the poster looks like it's a modified MIRC E13B font.
Oh, yeah. You didn't know that?
Right?
I'm actually really surprised.
Yeah.
That how you got on this show and didn't know that.
I've said, well, you know.
What is the thing that you just said?
Well, so what that is it's a font that was developed in the United States in the 1950s, and it was made to be readable by machines, scanners, and the human eye all at the same time. So basically, you're able to write in number patterns. Like, that's the part that's modified, is I don't think they ever created a true usable word font, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that thing. I think it was all numbers. And then, because I couldn't find a actual font, but I think they used that style of MIRC to then adapt it into a letter language for the poster.
Okay, I just looked it up, and very briefly, so it looks like it was created for magnetic printing on checks.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, at the bottom.
Yeah, and then so it's that same kind of, so if you were to look at a check and those weird computer numbers, I guess that's an MICR font.
Yeah, and it's because it goes in and it scans in the computer, and it could pick all that up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I thought that was interesting, because that's such a
super interesting.
Well, because it's such a like an isolated font style. Like, you know, I don't see it very often, and it was something that stuck out in this the original poster. Yeah,
and it's thinking about it and seeing the font now. Whenever we see it in the modern times, you're instantly, for me, I'm go back to the 80s.
Yeah.
For me, that's like an 80s reference point, because I feel like a lot of that kind of design, when we talk about computers, especially in the 80s, computers were way more prevalent than they were in 1969, of course. So I think a lot of movies and TV shows used them, and then they would reference that font. So that makes sense. So to me, that's like a callback to the 80s.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah, that does feel very 80s-ish. The animated title sequence, like we showed at the beginning of this video and we talked about, it was created by future Academy Award-winning British visual effects artist Alan Maley. It was reproduced to look like contemporary computer graphics, and he used stop-motion photography of paper cutouts. It's been cited as an early example of computational kitsch, right?
There's two things to unpack there. Number one, I encourage you, even if you don't want to watch this movie, look up the intro. I'm sure it's on YouTube. That hand-done stop motion, it's incredible. It must have taken months to do. An incredible, amount of work to be done there.
Yeah, and because it all actually looked more like, it all looked like animation. Like everything looked like drawn animation, like not stop motion
paper cutouts.
Animation. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Not like the Shaggy Dog. Like the Shaggy Dog clearly was stop motion, right? This dog's running around and everything.
It looked great. And then the computational kitsch makes sense, because it's really the first movie that I can think of where you have that sort of, and it's just, and I guess that's what we were talking about earlier, where the intro sort of betrays the whole rest of the film. They don't belong together, because the intro is so good, and that computational kitsch where you think about 80s graphics, and like you noted, you have the number codes and stuff. None of that's in the movie, but it's definitely made an impression on people who come after this movie, who use it as an example of, well, I need to make a movie about a computer. Let's try to get some sort of vibe, and you get that aesthetic, and you kind of move forward.
It's got those zeros and ones clicking and everything. Yeah,
dude. Yeah. The numbers spinning and stuff, and auto generating right in front of you.
Yeah,
it's great.
No, it's very cool, and I think it definitely is foundational. So, at the end of this movie, any eagle-eyed viewer might see the uncredited debut of movie actor Ed Begley Jr. He's on the other team. What is it? State College.
The Springfield, I think it's Springfield State Rockets, if I remember correctly.
Oh man, going deep. Okay, so if you look, there's a gal and there's a blonde gentleman. He has big, thick black glasses, and that's Ed Begley Jr. And he only has one talking line. Really, he has like a soft line, and then he has one thing where he says the 6 largest bodies of water in the wrong order, and that's his only line. And his name is Jay Flanderka.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was him. And then I saw that he was in this movie. Like, oh, I got to look back. And then once you know that that's him, it's unmistakable.
Oh yeah, you can kind of hear his modern voice in that kind of younger gentleman's voice, and I think that's cool because it's like the last time we had Sally Field, and now we got Ed Begley Jr. I can't wait for whatever next movie we're doing. Yeah. Okay, well, I only have 2 little pieces left, and I think these are really interesting. And this kind of has to do with like my hometown a little bit. So Bing Russell was in this movie. He played Angelo.
Who is Angelo?
Angelo is the gentleman who picked up the milk and dropped it.
That's Angelo? He's like the main...
He's the main rugged, taller, Frankenstein-headed guy compared to Chili.
Is he the guy who's making the calls?
I believe
into the racetrack? He's betting. So when he's sitting on the couch or on the table or whatever next to Kurt Russell, that's him?
That's Bing Russell. I honestly don't know if they ever reference him by name. Is the hard thing. But I thought that was cool because Kurt is playing next to his father in this movie in a few scenes.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that Bing Russell was an ex-minor league baseball player before he had gone on. As I knew him a little bit because he was pretty famous for being a deputy on Bonanza, and he was Robert in The Magnificent Seven, which is an awesome movie. But what I thought was fascinating, and I learned 2 things, is one, Russell was also well known on the national level as the owner of the Portland Mavericks baseball team.
Oh, wow.
And I honestly did not know that Portland, Oregon had a Class A baseball team. and not only that, apparently they were incredibly famous. Like,
oh, geez.
Yeah. So the Portland Mavericks were an independent professional baseball team in the Northwestern United States based out of Portland, Oregon. They began to play in a short season Class A Northwest League in 1973 and were initially the league's only independent club. As owner, Russell kept all the corporate sponsorship outside the gates and hired professional baseball's first female general manager.
Whoa, progressive.
As well as the first Asian American general manager.
Wow.
I know. Guy's killing it.
That's cool.
Russell's motto in life was one 3-letter word, which was fun. Which is funny because you don't get that. Like when you see him as this Angelo character, he looks very stiff.
Yeah.
But it's so cool that's like, he was kind of known for being a fun guy. Bing Russell is also in 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Season 3, episode 2, The Arrival. And season 5, episode 13, Ring-a-Ding Girl, which I just watched probably about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And so I wanted to close with this because this is interesting to me. And it goes along with Kurt Russell and his father. I did not know that Kurt Russell had actually done a fair amount of baseball. Like he played baseball basically at the same time he'd started acting, and he was pretty damn good. Wow. So I learned about this because I was watching an interview with Joe Flynn. He'd broken his leg and he was talking about the computer wore tennis shoes that hadn't come out yet. And he was discussing working with Kurt Russell. And he's like, all right, he's 19 and he's a real good boy. And, he's fairly good at baseball, And I was like, what, good at baseball? What the hell are you talking about? Yeah. So Kurt made his TV debut in Dennis the Menace in 1962 and was already a successful actor by age 20, appearing in 9 films and numerous TV shows. However, his talents extended beyond acting. He caught the eye of several Major League Baseball teams, including the Angels, the Cardinals, the Giants, and the Twins.
Jeez.
I know. This is nuts. I was working on a Disney film and the Giants and the Twins were talking to my dad about drafting me, Russell said.
Imagine being a dad of that child where you're like, oh man, I hit the big time. Yeah. Either my kid's going to be a successful baseball player or a great actor. Either one. Who cares?
I know. And there's no wrong answer here.
Right.
And this is a compelling thing is, so he eventually signed with a Class A band, I don't understand this word, but basically he signed to a Northwest League in Bend, Oregon in 1971. And he was hitting a 285 and earned an all-star spot. The next year.
That's the crazy thing about baseball to me, where you can hit, just shy of 300 and you're like all-star.
Yeah. Well, and he gets better. I mean, his batting average actually isn't bad at all. Like,
no, that's what I mean. It's more like if your average is what, like 300 or something like that, you're just like Hall of Fame. Like you're great,
right? No, but the next year with the Walla Walla Islanders, he batted .325, again making the All-Star team. His baseball career seemed promising, and he even played alongside future Major League manager Tom Tremblehorn. In 1973, Russell was promoted to Double-A El Paso, where he was off to a hot start, batting over .500 in the early season. However, an injury while turning a double play ended his hopes. A runner came in high and hit me hard, he recalled. Dr. Frank Jobe, famous for treating baseball injuries, diagnosed a torn rotator cuff. The doctor ran some tests, looked at me and said, "Aren't you also an actor?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you're an actor all the time now."
Love the bedside manner.
Yeah. It was a crushing blow. El Paso released him in May 1973, and though he was supposed to return later that season, Russell instead joined the Portland Mavericks, an independent team owned by his father, Bing. And there's actually a baseball card of Kurt Russell in the Mavericks uniform.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he's got his own baseball card.
It's probably worth $1 or $2.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. So the Mavericks became a sensation, setting attendance records. And Russell was also named vice president of the Mavericks, making him the only professional baseball player to also be an executive of the same team.
Wow, Nepo, baby.
I know. He hit a .229 in 23 games that season. His time with the Mavericks was short-lived, but their offbeat history was later immortalized in the 2014 Netflix documentary, The Battered Bastards of Baseball.
Really?
Directed by Russell's nephew, McLean and Chapman Way. Or his nephews, sorry. Isn't that funny? So his father owned a baseball team. He joined the baseball team. Later, they made a documentary about the baseball team. All the family just moving down the line, making money.
Yeah, that's crazy. I had no idea. I could be playing baseball. He had the world in front of him, man. The world is the Bo Jackson.
Isn't that is so wild that he really could have probably gone either way. His talents were good enough that he could have gone either way, and he just got hit at the wrong time or the right time. I mean, I love The Thing, so.
Well, that was very cool. I liked it. It was a good time. The movie, the movie was fine. It was a fine movie. It was a cute movie, a Disney movie from 1969. That's what it reads as. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting. There's nothing deep here. Don't be like me and Matt, where we go through and go, well, this doesn't make sense. Don't worry about it. It's still a fun movie. It's great to see Kurt Russell kind of, I don't want to say even starting out. I mean, I was obviously well established by then, so he was doing a great job. But you can check out all these other actors that you may not have known, and the whole cast did a great job. There wasn't a bad one in the bunch for sure.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say. Yeah, it's like it's a foundational Disney movie. I mean, it's
for
popular.
Some reason.
Like I know, and after watching it, I sort of don't understand it, but at the same time, I'm glad that I finally sat down and watched it, so that it's like. It's one that I've ticked off, I'm in the know now where I wasn't before.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So if you're going to do it for just that, just be like, yep, I get that reference now.
Absolutely. Well, if you want to be in the know, you can check out our website at earsup-podcast.com and check out all the other shows that we have for offer up on the channel. If you want hardcore Disney parks information, we have that. If you want hardcore Star Wars information, we have that with Bantha Milk. If you want hardcore Marvel information, we have a podcast just for you called Puny Pod and all sorts of really fun stuff over there. So hit us up over there on the website, earsup-podcast.com. And then, of course, if you want really cool 80s, sort of flashbacky, kitschy, jaunt down memory lane, you have Shelter from Oblivion with Matt's podcast as well. So go hit the follow buttons on everything and, hit everybody up on socials. We'd really appreciate it.
We are on Instagram. We're on Facebook, all the classics.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.